Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk metal. For this episode, we're talking metal currently on eBay. Yeah, a few pretty rare records have popped up for sale in the past several days as of the time of this recording. Again, these auctions probably will be closed or finished by the time this gets posted, but yeah, I thought we'd take a look at a few things that don't show up all that often. And for a couple of them, I've got some sound clips I can play so that you can check out what these bands sound like. I'm not advocating anyone go out and try to buy these or bid on these necessarily, just interesting items that you don't necessarily see all the time. So, yeah, what have I got saved over here on the eBay list? First one here is a Liquid Earth 7-inch from 1984. So yeah, this is a band from California. The band's been known to hardcore collectors of independently released US metal for a solid 15 years or more now. They made a 12-inch EP, actually, I guess a 12-inch single. There's only two songs on it. And they also made this 7-inch single that we're seeing right here. One song is the same on both of them, and each of them has one song that's unique. So, yeah, I guess they had three total songs as it was. There's also been some anthology stuff put out later on. I think they had a release through like CD Baby somewhere in the mid 2000s, 2010s. Both pieces of vinyl are very, very rare, as you might have guessed based on the $500 price tag for this single. Um, Based on past sales, 500 is not a crazy price to ask for this. Is it going to get any bids? As of this point, it hasn't. There's still 1 day and 12 hours left. Somebody might place a bid at the end. Somebody might not. You never know with these very obscure items. The problem with something like this is that, yes, it's ridiculously rare. Yeah, it's the kind of single where, yeah, if you went out and surveyed all the really serious collectors of this type of stuff, you'd probably find somewhere between 10 and 20 people that own it. So very, very few copies are in collectors' hands. The catch is that very, very few collectors have even heard of this band. And of those who have heard of them, only a small fraction like the band. And of those who know of them and like them, only a small fraction of those are going to be willing to pay anything like $500 for a copy of this. So, yeah, it's something that's always important to remember when you're dealing with these really, really obscure records. And I've made this point in previous videos, but it is worth repeating. When things are so obscure like Liquid Earth, there's only so much demand for them. So, I mean, your supply is super low, but your demand is super low as well. So it can be really hard to get big prices for these. And again, a lot of times when you see a price like this person had probably, I would guess, checked previous auctions on a site like PopPsych, maybe Discogs, and seen that, yeah, in the past, some copies have sold for around 500. Some copies have sold for more than this. But there is a very finite number of copies that are going to bring this much money because eventually every collector who wants it that badly and is willing to pay that much is going to have a copy because, yeah, there may only be 10 or 20 of those in the entire world. And after that, the price tends to crash on this kind of thing because there will be other collectors who want it, but not at this kind of price. Maybe they were willing to pay $100 for it or something like, 150. So yeah, there's only so many times a really, really obscure record like this can bring a huge price tag. So will Liquid Earth get any bids? Well, I guess we'll have to wait and find out. In the meantime, if you've never heard Liquid Earth, don't feel bad. Most folks haven't. I don't know why I have. I'm just that kind of weird little monkey. But yeah, let's check out a couple of clips. These are the two songs featured on the 7-inch, one called Liquid Earth and one called Lion's Den. Now, I think I pulled, yeah, these clips from this. anthology collection. There's a chance those songs were touched back up or partially re-recorded or something. So these versions may not sound exactly like the 7-inch version. But nevertheless, let's check out a little bit of the song Liquid Earth by Liquid Earth.
Here we go. Dr. Mad Scientist, mix me up a formula of liquid earth. Make it to perfection. Make it the creation of the book. See a flash of glitter. Watch us rock and roll.
All right, so there's a little bit of that song. You can tell right away, it feels like they still have one foot, maybe stuck a little bit in the 70s. Remind me just a little bit of like early Curith Ungle. Vocals a little crazy, over the top. It's, slightly amateurish sounding. Let's just be honest about it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it has a certain charm to it for sure. Let's check out a clip of the other track as well, which is called Lion's Den. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of the flip side. Again, kind of a quirky song structures to them. There is definitely a fan base for this style of metal. For some folks, it's going to sound a little too rough and amateurish, but other folks really like bands like this, where it's like, it's not polished at all. They're not virtuosos, but they're just going to go for it and deliver something that's a little unusual, a little bit left of center, but still really, yeah, kind of delivers a cool, heavy experience. So yeah, Liquid Earth, cool to see a copy of it on eBay currently. Not something I'm bidding on. To be clear, I didn't state this at the beginning, but I'm not planning on bidding on any of these records. A couple of them I do have. Others I don't have, but I'm just, yeah, not in the market for a copy currently. All right, let's see. Up next, we have a rare single by a band from New Jersey called Emerald. Now, there's obviously been a handful of bands named Emerald. This is not the Christian band that did the very collectible EP. The single that you're looking at here is this band's only release. This one came out, yeah, 86, 87. Songs High Roller and Ladies of the Night. Pretty standard issue looking picture sleeve with the band's logo, band photo on the front. This is the kind of thing you might have expected to see more, several years earlier in the 80s. And by this point in the 80s, this type of single is getting a little, less common as a marketing device. And again, this is the band's only release. Let's flip over here to Metal Archives. I think I still have them pulled up. Yep. Just wanted to double check the date on the single. Yeah, 85. Okay, so 85 is, yeah, you still get these kind of singles. Post 85, it feels like, the 7-inch single really started to dry up as a way for bands to, get their music out there. Bands were much more likely just to do demo cassettes at that point or even start getting into CDs. The Emerald single, they're asking $200 as a starting bid. There are no bids at this point. I believe this one has a make an offer option too. 200 again is not crazy for this particular single. It doesn't show up very often. This is one I don't have and wouldn't mind having. I've heard the songs. I don't have clips to play of this one though, but I have heard the tracks and they're not bad. I actually owned a copy for about a week because I won a copy on eBay a long time ago. I don't remember when it was, 15 years ago. But when I got it, the condition really did not match the item description at all. And so I had to return it to the seller. Seller wasn't happy about it, but they did give me a full refund. They were surprised. I was just like, look, you've got it advertised this way. It's not playing, in very cleanly whatsoever. So yeah, I had to send it back. Hated to do so. I knew it'd be hard to get again, but the copy sound quality wise was not worth what I had bid for it. Nevertheless, the copy is here. It's very good, sort of independent mid 80s US metal. It's not thrashy, it's not glammy, it's right there, just good traditional metal stuff. Uh, so okay, I like it. I don't have it. Why am I not bidding on it? Well, for starters, it's 200 bucks. 200 bucks again isn't an unfair price for it. My immediate no thanks here, besides just, current financial stuff, is looking at the pictures here, there's a lot of condition issues with this one. There's at least one tear right up here where the band's logo is at. There's a small 1987 written here in the corner, so maybe that's when somebody got it or thought it came out. The small 1987 I could live with. I don't like my picture sleeves ripped though. There's another like pretty good crease over in this corner, and there's a few other, issues with it here and there. So none of the damage is, really severe. It's not got a big chunk ripped away. Nobody's scribbled mustaches on everybody that doesn't already have a mustache. But um with, some rips, tears, handwriting and stuff, I think $200 would be a fair price for a really clean copy. For me, in my opinion, uh, no, I'm not going to pay $200 for a copy where the sleeve has a lot of noticeable wear to it, like this one. So, what is a fair price? That's completely up to each individual person. Would I give $100 for this copy? Uh, I don't know. I would at least think about it because, again, it is a rare record, and if it plays cleanly, then maybe. At the same time, I don't know. Getting if you get a copy that's in bad shape to the point that you feel like you immediately have to look for another copy to upgrade, sometimes it begs the question, why did you buy the copy that was in condition you weren't happy with? So. I don't know. I think this one also, like the labels on one side look like they may be a little bit wavy. That could be a trick of the light in the picture, but yeah, it looked like there might even be an issue with one of the labels a little bit. So, something like this, I'm not opposed to buying it, having it in the collection. Wouldn't hold it against anybody that wanted to. That's fine. For me personally, with these little condition issues kind of adding up, this would have to be a really good price. So, yeah, 200 is just not going to happen. We'll see something else here in a minute or two, a way you could pick up this for a much better price. What else have we got? Oh, just some Deathspell Omega CDs. I don't have this one. This is a decent price for this, but I just don't listen to Deathspell very often. Um, Here, this is kind of interesting. The first Gotham City single from 1982, kind of a legendary Swedish classic heavy metal band. Um, 135 for and says buy it now. Wow, that's an amazingly good price. This record has become very, very expensive over the years. It's not unusual to see people wanting $500, $1,000 for it now. I don't know if they ever get to sell it for that much, but the asking price has gotten very, very high for this record. And it is a great single. Love it a lot. So why hasn't anybody bought this already? Well, when you click it and check it out, it's on clear vinyl, and that's a bootleg. This is not an original copy of the single whatsoever. These colored vinyl bootlegs popped up many years ago. There were a bunch of them done for new wave of British heavy metal singles, and I think it was put out through a label called Phoenix Music. I'm not sure if Phoenix is responsible for the Gotham City one as well, or if this came out a little bit later, or maybe through somebody else making it. But yeah, anytime you see some of these really old early 80s singles and they're on colored vinyl, definitely stop and check before you bid on them. It's a very good chance that it's just a much later bootleg. Um, Granted, you don't even see copies of these old bootlegs anymore. They tended to dry up a long time ago themselves. But personally, would I pay 135 bucks for a bootleg 7-inch? No, not a chance. Not interested. If somebody else is, that's fine. Yeah, again, if you really love the band, and buying an original one's just completely out of the question, well, this would be a way to have kind of a neat vinyl copy of it. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I'm not refusing to buy it on principle that it's a bootleg or anything. I personally just don't want to pay that much. If someone else does, they can. I suspect you could get this cheaper if you were patient and willing to dig around quite a bit on the internet. All right, this is, yep. So here, Emerald, that we were looking at before, there's also a copy of the single with one extra track on a like little kind of CDR thing. And these were made, I think, by the band in 2014. So again, it's only three tracks, and it looks like it's put together, pretty basic. Yeah, I don't think you're getting a 24-page booklet and all this kind of stuff. But if you just wanted to have the two songs from the Emerald single on a physical medium and also get one unreleased track, there you go, 11 bucks, free shipping. You can get it and not have to worry about tears on the picture sleeve and stuff like that. Let's see, some stuff that's already ended. And again, we'll play clips from a couple of things here. Raven, Michigan band. This is a decent single and had the picture sleeve with it. 40 bucks, one bid. That's fair. That's probably about what one would expect. Um, let's see. Here's one of the really rare ones, though. Another Michigan band. There's a little bit of a Michigan theme to this. Real Steel. So yeah, this band put out this one 7-inch single in 1988. Has the songs Excalibur and Viking Queen. And you can see kind of, interesting picture sleeve, battle scene and all of this. And yeah, this one got a couple of bids, went for $360, which to some extent is surprisingly low. This is one of those kind of semi holy grail items for a lot of 7-inch US metal collectors. This record in the past, copies have sold much, much higher than this. But this might kind of go back to the point I made at the beginning about Liquid Earth. This single is extremely rare, but it's also extremely obscure. Real Steel did not exactly go on to set the world on fire and join the pantheon of Metallica and Iron Maiden among household heavy metal names. So while the single's very rare, again, there are very few people familiar with it. Out of those, there are only some who like it, some don't. And out of the ones who like it, there are only so many who are going to open their bank account and shell out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a copy. So, yeah, I suspect whoever got this for 360 is pretty happy with that price. It's cheaper than I typically have seen copies sell for over the years. Again, this is not one I pursued. I think the songs are good. It's just not, for me, $360 good. But I do have clips of this one, so let's at least check out what Real Steel sounds like. Let's start with Viking Queen.
Viking queen shall live on. King has lost a son. War, their arm is a one. An axe for the king will carry on. It's been a long time going home. The king never grew like his son. Castle.
Okay, so yeah, right away you can tell this is bona fide heavy metal. This isn't a band that sounds, very glammy or very dated or anything. Like the vocals, I always felt he had like kind of a gruffer James Hetfield kind of thing going on. And I don't know if it's just my particular MP3s here that are a little noisy, or if the record, again, was just recorded on a low budget and feels a little noisy, but it's not a huge detraction. Let's check out the flip side of Excalibur.
Through the forest into the open, sun shines, never snail, kings of land, unexplored, instrumental, that's our tower. I am a messenger up with the unknown. I am the Excalibur, I am the throne. Sweep across the land with this axe and aim. I am the Excalibur, and life beyond the sand. Don't take his life, his life.
All right, so yeah, a little more forceful on that one. Kind of thrashy sounding. I don't know if you go all the way and call them a thrash band, but it sounds like they're kind of getting there. And that's not too surprising given the release date of 1988 on this one. By that point, bands were more likely to be either thrash or, very commercial leaning and less likely to be in between so much. And so, as based on the heaviness of the tracks, I think it's easy to see why this one appeals to collectors. Yeah, that it's not a one side heavy and one side ballad type single or anything. So, yeah, decent stuff, not bad tracks. Um, but yeah, kind of a little bit out of my price range these days, and one that, well, it's good. Yeah, I'm just not going to pay hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bucks for it. Good. All right, moving along here. I think this is the last one in the saved eBay list. And again, this one's already ended too. Another Michigan band, Red Machete, which I always thought was kind of a cool name for a band. And this was their Pull the Rope single from 1985. And this one brought about $310, which I thought was surprisingly a little high. Not outrageously high. I don't think anybody went nuts here, but you had four bids, $310. Um, so what the hell's the deal with Red Machete? This band put out a couple of singles, and they did an album, but it was a cassette only album. And we can go check it out over here on the archives. It's worth taking a look at, I promise. Mhm. Yeah, not a lot of Red Machetes out there. Later changed their name. So yeah, you had two singles, Pull the Rope, the one on eBay, that's the first one from 85. Yeah, here's the album they did. Similar graphic to the cover of Pull the Rope with the hand busting out of the grave with the guitar. But yeah, um, that there you go. I've heard most of this band stuff. I've heard the album and I've heard the Pull the Rope single. I do have the Pull the Rope single. I don't have this other single. The picture sleeve for this one, interestingly, is kind of oversized. Um, Oops, was going meant to go back over to eBay for a moment. Yeah, the picture sleeve here is a little oversized, where it doesn't fit into a plastic 7-inch sleeve very well. And it's also very, very thin paper, so it's easy to get damaged. My picture sleeve is not in particularly great shape. It's not destroyed, but yeah, it's got some wear and tear to it. Red Machete is a little bit in the same vein as Liquid Earth that we started with, having that kind of, very quirky off-kilter sound. And why don't we just go ahead and check it out? I pulled up one of the two songs here. This is a clip from Pull the Rope.
As the sun dawns and a new light comes today, he just grabs your broken heart and watches you slip away. So don't go, you don't know. You sell your soul, it's a rock and roll. You don't know, but he sold your soul. He puts you through temptation, so people you gotta beware. When he grabs for the rope from his hands, your soul you must tear. So don't go, you don't know. You sell your soul, it's a rock and roll. You don't know, but he sold your soul. Pull the rope, coming up from the ground. Pull the rope, he's dragging you down. Pull the rope, it's a curse that you found. Pull the rope, breaking his bound.
All right, we'll stop it there. That is one gnarly guitar solo. Gnarly is one of those words from the 80s that could mean really good or really bad, and I'll let you decide which one it is here. Personally, I can kind of dig it. So yeah, Red Machete has that same kind of, raw, amateurish, slightly over the top and slightly weird vibe to them, but I can absolutely dig it. And like I said, this I was kind of surprised it got this high. If you had asked me to guess what was it going to sell for, I might have guessed like $200. It does not show up very often. There's a fan base for this kind of thing. But yeah, if it's a super clean picture sleeve and that rare, somebody wanted it for $300, that's absolutely cool. Again, it's not an insane, ridiculous, what were they thinking kind of price. It's just like, oh, wow, got that high. I definitely would have thought there would have been a lot more than $50 difference between the Red Machete auction and the Real Steel auction, but that's how it played out on this particular day on eBay. Okay, there's something been floating in the background here that I guess we ought to check out before I wrap this up. There's a copy of the Avatar that keeps getting listed here. So what's up with that? Um, okay, I have not looked at this listing at all yet. $202 with 5 bids so far. Uh, Let's look at some of these other pictures. The Avatar, of course, you have to be kind of mindful with. This was obviously this was Sabotage before they were Sabotage. So this is like that John and Chris Oliva's first, well, technically second piece of vinyl. They also had a single under the name Metropolis, which is even older but much less heavy. This is the first one that, yeah, starts to feel like Sabotage. I mean, like, obviously these songs, City Beneath the Surface and stuff, and the little logo there. I mean, it's Sabotage in everything but name. The thing you got to look for on copies of this, because it got bootlegged, yeah, you have to check the labels very closely. The picture here's a little hard to say. The real copies will have more like a silverish label, which this might be. Bootleg copies tend to have like a very white label. And based on this picture, it's like I'm Not really sure. It doesn't look like, yeah, the really plain bright white bootleg. Um, it's probably silver enough. I'd have to pull a copy like off the shelf and compare it. Yeah, this one probably checks out. If I were seriously interested in bidding on this, I definitely would follow up on it, maybe ask for some additional pictures. The picture sleeve does look right. Notice how it kind of has a little bit of a curvature down here in the center. That's something that is on the original picture sleeves. At least early bootlegs of this, the back edge at the top is straight across. It doesn't have this kind of mild curve down towards the center right there. Whether somebody later made more boot picture sleeves and fixed that, I can't say. Bootleg picture sleeves also tend to be a slightly different color of red. And that sounds like, oh, well, that's very easy. Just look at the shade of red. Well, you have to have an original to compare it to, and then you have to assume is the lighting in the photograph showing the correct shade, or is the shade off because it was a photo, the light was weird, or it got slightly altered when it was uploaded. Everything here on first pass looks okay. The red looks okay to me. The curvature looks okay. And the labels have that kind of grayish color. Again, if I were in the market for this and wanting to bid on it, I'd probably ask for a few follow-up pictures just to confirm everything before I placed a bid. Yeah, this is another one, of course, that's gotten very expensive over the years. What will it sell for? Let's see. I've already got five bids. It's got only another basically 8 hours, so it closes later today. I wouldn't be surprised if it got a few more bids, went a little higher. There are, of course, a few copies. There were somewhere between 10 and 20 copies that were made on like a gold yellow colored vinyl. Those are extremely rare and would sell for much, much higher price. They have there's been a handful of examples have turned up and sold over the years. I don't know if any have sold in recent years, however. And again, prices do change over time. For example, I think at least one of the gold copies sold for like around $9,000. Yes, thousand, not hundred. $9,000 once upon a time, but that was probably pushing, I want to say 20 years ago, but maybe it was only 15. Regardless, a lot has changed since then. A lot of people who might have been interested in something like this found it or are no longer interested in it. The world economy is a very different place than it was, that far back also. So they may just not have any collectors willing to go that high for something like it anymore. Nevertheless, yeah, this is an interesting one. I'll probably add this to the watch list and see what happens to it at the end of the day. All right, well, that is going to do it for this video. So now let's talk metal in the comments down below. Anything cool you're watching on eBay lately, or anything cool that you've picked up off of eBay? I rarely get anything through eBay anymore. I keep an eye on it, check auctions and stuff. The things I want are usually just priced way too high for me to even bother with. And this is true even for just like, smaller ticket, run-of-the-mill items. I can usually just find them for a better price either on Discogs or some other website. And when the bigger things like some of the stuff we've looked at here today show up, they always tend to command such a high price that I'm just not in the market for them at this point. I've got a family to take care of. For the right record, yes, I'll, spend a good amount of money, but I'm not looking to drop, several hundred per item over and over and over again. No, no, it's just not the place I'm at this point in my life. All right, well, let's wrap it up there. Hope folks have enjoyed this, and until next time, everybody take care, and as always, keep banging your head.